Hi, I'm Mary, and if you're a single Christian woman over the age of 40, you love God, but maybe you just don't love being single, this is for you. Today, I want to talk about why commitment matters and why you shouldn't feel guilty because you want a commitment. And I think it's interesting how a lot of times women are very shocked when an uncommitted man acts in a way that is uncommitted. I saw a celebrity recently that she's not married to this man. They have a child together, and he kind of doesn't really show up how he's supposed to for the baby. He cheats on her, and she's just so shocked that he's not involved, and yet he's not committed to her. He didn't want to marry her. And I think a lot of times as women, we think that if we have a baby with someone, they'll somehow suddenly be committed to us. But, listen, if he won't commit to you in the form of a marriage, then he's not going to be committed to that child. And I know we see a lot of celebrity relationships, and you may know some as well in real life, where people aren't married, but they've been together for a long time, and they will say like, well, we're just as committed as someone who's married, but it really is not the same. So here's the thing. If a man does not want to commit to you in the form of a marriage, if that's what you want. Okay, so I'm assuming if you're even watching this video, it's because you want the commitment of marriage. And if a man is not willing to make that commitment, then you need to not give him the benefits of the commitment. And I am qualified to talk about this, not because I've been married, but because I have wanted to be married, and I have consistently done things to derail my relationships so that they don't result in what I want, which is marriage. So that's why I'm qualified to talk to you about this. A lot of times you'll hear people say, well, marriage is just a piece of paper. No, it's not. Marriage is a legal contract. It is a piece of paper in that there is a legal documentation of the marital commitment, but you have certain rights and responsibilities when you are married to somebody. For example, in the state where I live, you're either married or you're not married. There's no such thing as legally separated. The state where I live, you have to be separated, living apart for 12 months, then you can file for a divorce. But there is no such legal status as legally separated. You're either married or you're not. So if I am dating a man who does not yet have that final divorce decree, let's say he and his wife have been separated for 11 months, they're getting ready to file the paperwork, and he ends up in the hospital, as his legal wife, she can make all the decisions and she can have me removed from the hospital. Unless he's made some sort of change to make me his legal power of attorney. But marriage is not just a piece of paper. It's a commitment that is recognized by God, first and foremost, and also by whatever state you're in. And frankly, the federal government, because you're going to see certain tax benefits if you file as a married couple jointly versus a single person. Now, I've known people who have said, well, we're married in our hearts. Like, we got married before God in our hearts. No, Nowhere in scripture does it say that just being married in your heart is what God sees as a marital commitment. So God must see a value in who you are legally married to, because even Jesus at the well with the Samaritan woman, when Jesus said to the woman, go get your husband, and she said, I don't have a husband, and Jesus said, yeah, that's true, and in fact, you've had 5 husbands, and the man you're with right now is not your husband. So this idea of we're just going to decide in our hearts that we're married. I mean, I've even had friends who have referred to their boyfriend as my husband. Well, if he has not made that legal commitment to you, he is not your husband. And the problem is that a lot of times women will give the benefits of marriage without the commitment and the protection that marriage provides. So if you spend your whole life making a home and providing for a man, and you're not legally married, he can pick up and leave. And depending on the state where you're in, you may or may not have the protection of a common law marriage. So my experience has been, if you're not married, the man is keenly aware that he is not married to you, and in his mind, that is almost always going to be there. Well, we're not married. Well, she's not my wife. And if he meets somebody else, he can truthfully say, I'm not married. I'm single. Because legally, he is single. I think that we're in a time right now where if you want marriage, you're seen as old-fashioned and needy, and we've gotten this message as women that you don't need a man, you shouldn't want a man, you can do everything you want by yourself. And I really think that is a disservice to women. First of all, in Genesis, after the fall, God said to Eve, your desire will be for your husband. Now, are there women who don't want marriage and don't want family? Yes, that's fine. That's your thing. However, God created us as women to want commitment, to want marriage, to want family. And so when the world shames you for wanting that, God says, I created you to want these things. And again, like I said, if you don't, it's okay. Jesus said marriage isn't for everybody. Jesus said, some people are made single by other people. Some people are made single because they just don't want marriage. And some people, God keeps single for some other reason. So I'm not saying that everybody should get married, but I am saying that if you want that, it's okay. I spent a lot of years feeling like I shouldn't want marriage because I guess it's not happening for me, or if I didn't want this, then I wouldn't have this pain in my heart over wanting it and not having it. And it's okay. And I think it's an important step to just get real with yourself and say, you know what? I want to be married. And for a long time, I wasted so many years with men who told me they didn't want to get married. I stayed not because I hoped he would change. It's because I hoped I would change, that I was willing to just discount what I wanted and say, well, I'll just, this will be good enough. And I was devaluing what I wanted And that kept me in these dead-end relationships that were not going to go anywhere. And the guy wasn't even leading me on. He had told me right up front, I don't want to get married. And I was like, okay, well, that'll be good enough for me. And then I was constantly miserable because I was like, what's wrong with me? I should just be happy because I have this great boyfriend. And, we can have a great relationship without being married. But the truth is, I want a marriage. And if that is what you want, then that's an important thing for you to know about yourself. The danger of being in a relationship that is commitment-like, okay, it's marriage-ish, is that you end up spending years with this man. You create a life together. You're doing all the wife things. You're doing the laundry. You're driving his kids to school. Maybe you're taking care of his children, and they might be children that the two of you have together. You're doing all the things, but there's not that permanent commitment there. And I'm going to tell you that as women, you know it's not there, and he knows it's not there. And that is going to have an undercurrent of instability in your relationship and insecurity. And it's going to cause resentment, because if commitment is important to you and he's not participating, and listen, he might have told you up front, I'm never going to get married. Okay, so if you're in that situation, that's on you. And I can say that because I've done it. But when you don't have that true commitment, then here you are trying to create something that mimics what you want, but the other person has no obligation to do that because they told you up front they didn't want that. So you have to be clear what it is that you want. I dated a guy that, while we were dating, I had a little bit of a health scare. And I was younger, but I had asked him, I was like, well, if this turns out to be something like really bad, are you going to stick with me? And he flat out told me, he's like, nope, it's not what I signed up for. I can go find someone healthy. Now, as it turned out, happily, it was a scare and not a real health issue. But that always stuck with me, that he said, we didn't have a commitment. And he told me straight up, hey, there is no better for worse or in sickness and in health. We don't have that commitment. So I'm not obligated to stick around for that. When you're pretending to have a commitment, as a woman, like I said, you'll do what he wants. You'll act how he wants. Maybe he says, I don't like red lipstick, so you don't wear red lipstick. Or he says, I like your hair long, so you never cut it. But that's control, not commitment. Now, that's a different story when you're married to somebody and you have a commitment together and you can make a decision. Am I going to honor his request of not wearing red lipstick or not? And, healthy commitment isn't about somebody having control over someone else. It's about both people have something on the line. They have an investment. They both have a responsibility. And I heard it said that entering into a marriage is like two companies in a merger. You would do your due diligence and you would really make sure on both sides, is this the right thing for us to do? And what's this going to look like? Who's going to do what? And listen, I'm going to tell you, it used to be that the social contract was that men really couldn't have sex with a woman unless they were married. Now, he could always find somebody who might, give it up. He could always go hire a prostitute. But if he wanted sex guaranteed, maybe not guaranteed, but if he wanted to know this woman will be available for me to have sex with, then he had to give her the commitment of marriage. Okay, so that changed. Today, men don't need that. And you know why? Because there are enough women who will grant access sexually without commitment. And maybe you've heard the saying, why buy the cow when you get the milk for free? I used to say, well, I would never buy a car without test driving it. And let me tell you something. The last car I bought, my dream car, I didn't test drive it. I bought it online. It was delivered to me. I'd already paid for it. Now, I took it to the mechanic. Mechanic checked it out, said it was great, fine. But you're not a car, okay? So he's gonna take me for a test drive. And ladies, let me tell you something. I think, once you reach a certain age, you start to see that this is true. A man might break up with you because you won't have sex with him outside of marriage. However, having sex with a man outside of marriage does not make him stay. And so here you are giving the very best of yourself that should be given in the safety and security and protection of marriage. And you give that to him. Doesn't have any value to him. He didn't have to do anything. Maybe it means something, maybe it doesn't. For me, in my experience, what I learned was giving all the benefits of marriage does not lead to marriage. And a lot of times what happens as women is we're like, I'm going to prove myself, so I'm going to act really wifey so that he'll wife me up. It doesn't work that way. You just keep giving and giving and jumping through hoops and thinking that if I'm good enough, then he'll marry me. That's not how it works. A commitment in the form of a marriage is intentional. You're agreeing, we're going to build a life together. We're going to have a future together. We've had a conversation about money, about values, about children, about health and taking care of each other as we get older, and assets and division of labor and family and holidays, etc. Dr. Phil says you should, people spend more time planning the wedding than they do planning the marriage. So this isn't about a big wedding. It's about the form of relationship. If he's not willing to make a commitment that says he's going to provide for you and protect you, why are you giving him everything? He's already told you he's not interested in doing his part. So if that is what you want, if you're honest with yourself and you say, you know what, I really do want the commitment of marriage, that is okay. You need to be honest with yourself. You need to be honest with men. I don't know if you'll get it or not, but I will tell you from my personal experience, being in relationships that are commitment-like is not anywhere near the commitment of what you want. So don't put yourself on that bargain basement table. Now, what I call the wonderful life is when you are living a life that you love. You want a soulmate, but maybe he hasn't shown up yet, but you're enjoying your life. And by the way, when you're happy and peaceful and full of joy, that is the most attractive. You're most likely to attract somebody because you're fun and you're vibrant and you're engaged in life. It's really hard to do that if you're dealing with a heartbreak. So under this video, or if you're listening to the podcast, in the show notes, I've put a link where you can get my totally free training on, it's called the ABCs of Healing. It's how to get over heartbreak. And that's free for you. And I just want to tell you, thank you so much for joining me today. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.